that you could hack systems for a living and get paid for it.
I suppose, what are the pros and cons with AI and security?
The Copilot Echo Leaks vulnerability that came out a couple of weeks ago with the new electricity revolution, it's the new industrial revolution, we're in the AI revolution.
They go onto GitHub, they download the script, they don't know what it does, they don't know how to read the code to understand what's going to happen when you run it, and it ends up being malware.
Like a message you give someone that was trying to get into this.
If you can't be best, be first.
Welcome to this week's Talking Tech episode. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Simon Exley and Clint Elves. We're going to be discussing the topic of cybersecurity, testing and AI. Maybe you guys, welcome obviously to Talking Tech.
Thank you.
Maybe we could start with a little introduction to you guys, how you've got into the jobs you're in at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Simon Exley. I'm from South Africa, Port Elizabeth, originally born there, and then studied computer science at Stellenbosch and moved over to the UK at the start of last year in January, and then started off as a cybersecurity analyst at BDO, and now moving over to ThreatSpark next week actually as a penetration tester. So that's a little bit about me.
Yes, so similar background. I started in Cape Town and I went to university at Stellenbosch University, studied computer science as well, and then I flew over here in January last year, and then have been working as a pen tester since, and moving to a new company now as a pen tester.
So similar backgrounds, computer science. Like burning question everyone asks is, how did you get into tech? But I think possibly more specific for you guys is, how did you get into pen testing? It's quite niche. What made you guys decide to do that?
At Stellenbosch, computer science is quite strongly focused on software development. So software engineering is the number one career that you get pushed into once you finish your degree. And when I was going through my degree, I always thought to myself, I don't think software engineering is for me. So I did a little bit of research and that sort of thing. Found out about this thing called cybersecurity and ethical hacking, and thought it was pretty cool that you could hack systems for a living and get paid for it. So I was lucky enough to get an internship at a company called MWR in Joburg. They were originally F-Secure, but then rebranded to MWR. And once I did that internship, I fell in love with it. We did a web application test there and had to find all the vulnerabilities in there and that sort of thing. And then went back to uni and did a certification called the EJPT, which is just a junior certification. And then got approached by a recruiter to join BDO in the pen testing team and that sort of thing. And then obviously that's where I am now. So yeah, Clint, do you want to elaborate on yours?
Yeah, so also since I went to Stellenbosch as well, major focus on web development and other types of maybe architecture. We did a lot of like C, Java, that type of thing in university. And then in my final year, I kind of saw Simon doing some work on like a junior penetration testing course, the EJPT. And that kind of sparked my interest. Like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm hacking stuff. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. You know? So I decided to check it out, and I ended up getting involved with that. And yeah, got the job in the UK and moved over.
Like the big interest for me, like the ethical hacking piece is super cool and interesting for all the people you guys come across. I know it's led you into your own YouTube channel.
Yes.
Podcasting.
Yeah.
So how's that going? What got you sort of inspired to start focusing on a YouTube channel?
I think the main thing is in security and cybersecurity especially, it's all about learning and staying up to date with all the threats that are coming out. And the best way to learn is to teach. So that's primarily where the channel came from, I think. And then obviously now it's just become our passion project, I think. So Clint and I really enjoy making the videos, editing them, and then releasing them to the community.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that you'll be like scrolling on LinkedIn, or you'll be doing some research and you'll find this awesome, cool tool or some new type of development environment to like test stuff out on and stuff like that. And then you got the opportunity to go, hey, I'm going to make a video about this. I'm going to make a script, do this whole thing. And you learn a lot through the process, setting up the demos and stuff. Yeah, it's quite cool.
It's for me, like we deal with a load of people getting into tech, like first jobs, passion, decisions they make around, what path do they follow? Would you, or what piece of advice would you give someone, just beginning their career in either cybersecurity or pen testing, tools to look into, investigate? Where would they start, basically?
Sure. So I would definitely play around, because the thing with cybersecurity, it's so massive. There's so many different types of testing. I mean, even if you're looking at the whole computer science realm where it's development and all, there's so much to do in tech. So I'll definitely try and find smaller, cheaper courses that focus on little parts of different areas, maybe even YouTube tutorials, just work on your own projects and stuff before you start spending any hectic money on any massive course that's going to take a long time to save up for and take like up to a year to complete. And just play around, and then once you've got the feel for it and you kind of have an idea of what you enjoy, then I would go that way.
I think just to add on to Clint there, I think it won't serve you any harm if you begin at the beginning of how computers work and how, if you turn it on, what happens to the computer, and when you turn it off, what happens there, and that sort of thing. So I think understanding that whole process, all the OSI layers, how networking works, it help you if you're remotely interested in technology and computer science or software engineering or whatever. And then I think really, especially now, it's a lot more important to learn a coding language. One is good enough. Clinton's first coding language was Java, but it just gives you that mindset and that understanding of how code works, and you can translate that to all the different coding languages like C or whatever. But I think it's especially important now because AI is coming into the fray, and you can build apps now by just telling things like Cursor or Replit, hey, build me a landing page for my website, and it'll do it. But you don't understand anything that it's doing because you haven't learned the coding language. So I think it's really important to start there as well. And then, as Clint said, find the path that you enjoy. So whether it be ethical hacking or SOC or whatever, and then look to do certifications in that specific field.
You mentioned AI, like everyone's talking about it. Everyone's wanting to get involved in it. Everyone's wanting to implement it. I use it on a daily basis. Or I suppose, what are the pros and cons with AI and security? Is it something people should be fearful for? Is it something they should embrace? Like, especially early doors. Like, what is your advice to people on that?
Well, you can look at it from a tester's standpoint, where they're using it on tests. It's very important not to enter any client confidential information into it, of course. But it can save you time if you need a quick script and it would take you 5 minutes to write. Instead, you can ask something to make it for you, and then you can spend maybe about 1.5 minutes trying to kind of debugging it, and then save a bit of time. And when it comes to on the testing side of where you are testing a product that has AI in it, then things can get quite interesting. We've got prompt injection and new areas of cybersecurity that are opening up, especially around this now. So I can tell you about a cool...
Yeah, you have the Copilot Echo Leaks vulnerability that came out a couple of weeks ago, which basically is when an attacker sends a crafted email that has... You can't even see the prompt that is in there because they hide it with JavaScript, or they basically make the text white on the background or whatever. And what that does is now it bypasses the email filters in your Outlook gateway, and you have Copilot now installed in your Microsoft Outlook email system, and that prompt is then getting fed to that LLM. And what it does is it then leaks sensitive information and feeds it back to the threat actors without you even knowing. So it's things like that. So I think AI, it's a marriage because it's both helping the defenders in terms of you now have things like threat intelligence that uses AI to help pick up patterns and that sort of thing in the world to help laser focus the SOC analysts on what's going on there, as well as you have malicious actors using it now to trick email gateways and Copilot to send it information that it shouldn't be sending it. But I think Jensen Huang from NVIDIA said it the best, that it's the new electricity revolution, it's the new industrial revolution. We're in the AI revolution now. Yeah. And I think it's for people that are open-minded and want to adapt with the technology that it will serve its best purpose. If you're someone that's closed-minded and doesn't want to change or anything, sit in your TV couch and don't change, then you'll get left behind at the end of the day. So I think it's a catch-22 in that sense. You either change with it or you get left behind in the dust.
It's almost, I think, the ethical hacking pieces, like poachers turn gamekeepers as well. You kind of know the ins and outs, where they're going to be weaknesses in the systems, and kind of, I suppose, adopting that early and being involved with AI means you're ahead of the game and you can predict a little bit of that.
Yes.
When it comes to systems, the more I use it, it feels like the more intuitive it is to me as a user of AI.
Yes.
Is that the case with testing? Like it's all about the data that goes in, right? It's not necessarily the outcome. It's how clear is the data? How what are the outcomes you're looking for? Is that the same with you in testing?
I guess for videos and stuff, we do research and we try and keep like our our fingers on the tap, like where we're trying to like see the information coming out, like what's happening in the world. Because it's always nice to make like a video of something that's relevant. But I think a lot of people have very quick and very easy access to information now. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to come to us faster than it's going to come to any of you guys all.
But you know what they say, if you can't be best, be first.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
especially in this day and age, it plays a big part. So like Clint said, we constantly on LinkedIn looking for new video ideas and when people are releasing new tools and that sort of thing. But at the same time, those people could be releasing malicious tools that you don't even know. So it's all about doing your due diligence and making sure you check that code and make sure you understand the code. So it comes back to knowing the basics again.
Yeah. A lot of people are trying to go on and find the easy ways of doing cybersecurity, where they see somebody post something as, oh, I've been able to avoid this detection system and it's like soundproof, this is going to work. They go, oh, cool. They go onto GitHub, they download the script. They don't know what it does. They don't know how to read the code to understand what's going to happen when you run it. And it ends up being malware. And it's not necessarily always hectically malicious. Sometimes you are trying to build an application and you're using Cursor or some type of AI assistant to help you. And then what happens is it will do exactly what you tell it to do. So if you are telling it to set up, say, JWT token authentication in some kind of way, then it will probably do that. And it's not necessarily going to work or be the most secure, but it will just set it up like that. And then once it does that, you actually, as somebody that doesn't know exactly what's going on, are not going to be able to catch that you've just put vulnerabilities into your code, and it's going to come out in your production if you just decide to release it like that.
Do you think also with that, like people, not just in the cybersecurity and testing about, should be upskilling themselves on that kind of thing and learning more and subscribing to your YouTube channel? But in terms of, people worried about, is this going to take over jobs or is there going to be less opportunity for me? But I'm a big believer in, like, if you upskill, you don't fall behind. Like, the more you learn. Should that be the case for people in technology across the board?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because like I said a few moments ago, if you aren't going to go the extra mile to understand what you're doing with the AI, then the likelihood that you're going to ship malicious code or vulnerable code to production is incredibly high. So there's been a few times now that someone has vibe coded an app and then puts it out on the internet and it gets hacked within a week, because people are monitoring new releases that domains release new applications and that sort of thing. So it's incredibly likely that someone's going to hack it if you have no idea what you're doing.
And for a layman like me, what's vibe coding? How do you explain that in simple terms?
So vibe coding is you don't actually need to know exactly what to do in terms of, I want to make this landing page and I want to have it take in an email address people are going to sign up to, a newsletter. I want to build this thing as quickly as possible. I go onto Cursor, I see all the code and I run it and I see it hosted like on my local network and I can go check it out and I go, okay, change this thing, add this, please add this feature. I would like it to work like this, remove this. And all these alterations kind of build up on top of each other. And then at the end of your project, you've got this AI that's been changing things this whole time. And you haven't really been understanding what it's been changing. Right. You have areas in your code that need to be like actually if you've got input validation that's not working, it's not going to check for like SQL or cross-site scripting or anything like that properly. And you've literally gone just for the functionality. That's when it can start becoming dangerous. And the vibe coder, because he's just been giving it plain text English instructions, he hasn't really read through the code. He's only checking it on his little development server where he's playing with it and goes, oh, okay, it works. It takes in my email. That's what I wanted to do. But he doesn't understand what's behind it.
I think a great way to explain it is you want to build a house, right? And then you get a builder that it's got reviews, he's reputable, he's been around, 50 years experience or whatever. And you got this new guy on the block. He's cheaper than the more experienced one, but nobody's used him before or whatever. But then you go and use him. He builds your house, he builds it fine. it looks like it's workable. You can live in it, whatever. And then a week later, your roof starts leaking, and then 2 weeks later, you got a flood going on because your taps in your bathroom don't turn off or something like that. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much an analogy that can be used. You are basically just wanting to get a finished product, but you don't care how you get there.
Sometimes the people do know what they're doing. In that case, it is effective and it is efficient if you actually have proper dev experience and you are giving it these instructions. It builds you a wonderful app within minutes, and you go through the code and you actually see, no, it's okay, or you see something needs to be changed. It takes you a few minutes to change some features and you've got a safe app. Then in that case, a vibe code is a good thing.
It's kind of, I mean, I know you mentioned it, Simon, it's the evolution of tech, isn't it? Like, I haven't done recruitment for years, but like when I was doing it with C and C++ and making sure people understood, standard template libraries and how they're putting it together, and is their code structurally sound? This is like another evolution, right? The more, in theory, it should make you faster to be able to make decisions, better for strategy if you know how to use it. It's probably dangerous in the wrong hands, namely mine, but, the people who understand how to incorporate this in their daily working lives are the ones that are going to ultimately be the ones that benefit, right? So we will talk very briefly about cybersecurity and kind of, I suppose, the intersection of AI. Like, going forward, do you see any issues or any like trends that you think is it going to be a marriage made in heaven, or is there going to be some major issues as those collide? How do you think that's going to evolve?
Well, I think in terms of I like doing phishing campaigns at my work, so I'm not the most well liked when I tell people that, and they are in corporate work, but yes, and I must say, when it comes to generating a simple HTML template that's supposed to look like something that I want it to look like, that could be like a Copilot, going off the Copilot thing, Copilot enrollments. This is, you can sign up here to enroll your device in this Copilot, and it's got nice Microsoft branding everywhere and nice logos, and it's perfect styling, and then it can do that. It can knock one out for you in a matter of seconds, minutes, for just tinkering around with it. That makes life easier instead of having to code the whole template yourself. So in certain cases, it can make an actual threat actor's life a lot easier. In terms of malware development, it could also speed things up if they know what they're doing.
It's a building block though. Like you said, it's changed. And technology's evolved, and I think you still need to know the building blocks. So you still need to know how your standard libraries work and all that sort of stuff in your C. But then the AI just adds that onto that, and it makes it more complex and that sort of thing. But I think it's a race between the threat actors and the defenders in the terms of, if an attacker finds something new with AI and then exploits it, it's not going to be. The defender won't be too far behind the threat actor in terms of patching that and fixing that, because it's their job, it's their livelihood. They can't just be relaxing on the beach while every company's getting compromised by this new exploit that's been developed by artificial intelligence. So I definitely think it's a race.
And what do you guys see? I mean, as I said, as that evolves, what are the next trends? What are the next things that are going to come out related to this that will impact, whether it's everyday users or you guys as technologists? What do you see on the horizon?
I think there's a lot of automation coming in terms of automating penetration tests and automating workflows in terms of the stuff that it can be automated. So I think agentic workflows, Clint can talk a lot about that sort of thing, but doing stuff in the background while you focusing on the human aspect of the role, because at the end of the day, you're still delivering work to clients. And if your clients are human, I think they would appreciate a human delivering the work to them rather than a robot.
One of the projects that I'm working on now is a Nathan pipeline. We want to kind of like come up with like a newsletter to send people that want to subscribe. The project that I was mentioning earlier is actually one that I'm working on, and it's basically I'm using Nathan as my data pipeline, and in that I can set a node to use ChatGPT or some OpenAI LLM model to do work in my pipeline for me. Now, if your backend is not secure and somehow there is some interaction with an external user threat actor with your LLMs, and they can actually inject prompts into there, it can affect, if it's on your backend, it can affect not only your stored data there, but it can also affect what it sends out to users. And if you haven't secured all the steps, then you could be putting your users at risk, and then you'll be at your information privacy laws. That's where that stuff starts catching up to you, and you could be in some trouble.
I think it's also the bit you mentioned about the human element. Like technology is moving at such a speed. I think the interface between human interaction and like the business world, and how whether it's corporates or just in commercial environments, the more comfortable people are with this kind of technology and what's going on, like the better or more informed they are with decision making, and the easier they take it on board. And I think that's really important, having technical enthusiasts like you guys that like spread the word, because it's always been a what happens over the wall that I don't know what happens. And I think the fact that, as I said, you guys are doing a YouTube channel, I think there's loads of interaction with podcasting is great. It gives people, I think, comfort to like, this stuff's understandable as long as it's explained in a simple way. Is, I suppose, that on that bit, what like kind of drawing it back to something you guys have done in your own time, is there any like really cool nerdy projects you could talk about that you did when you were either younger around hacking that you're happy to share with people?
Jeez. Well, I guess I'm working on this project now. That's the newsletter that I want to bring out. Otherwise, when I was younger, I used to like Monopoly, and then I lost my dice. So I made a Java program using all these classes that I learned about in my first year uni course, and I made myself a program that would roll a number. You would use a random number generator to get the dices, and then it would print the dice onto the screen that the person was rolling. And then I also like put in some cash counting system to count the number of cash. But it ended up being that we were just using the computer to play Monopoly, and we weren't really like focusing on anything else. So yeah, it's a scrap for another day.
It's a rabbit warren you can go down. Like,
yes,
as you said, you end up playing with the computer versus Monopoly with your
friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you just sat alone playing with the computer the whole time?
Well, actually, that.
I definitely think that's for a different day.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah.
I actually don't have any projects that I did like that. So mine was always to.
Yeah, were always impressive and upstanding.
They always had a reason for why I was doing them. So.
Okay, well, based on that, let's keep on there. Do you think ethical hacking and ethical AI are on some sort of collision course in the future? How do you think that's going to develop?
Well, since it can do a lot of work for you really quickly, and some would argue not very efficiently, but if you can kind of nudge it in the right direction through a whole bunch of prompts and manual checks and stuff like that, you might be able to get some good output. I could definitely see it being used more on the defensive side of things, and also attacking, also as red teamers, to kind of, if we had to do some enumeration on an internal network and we have some stuff that we would like to automate, if somebody was able to actually build something with AI that did that properly, then that would be quite valuable if they can do it quickly and efficiently and not have it run on a massive server that's going to use all my resources and space. That would be great. But until that day.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, if the AI builds its own virus or malware and then it bypasses every single EDR and antivirus out there, the next logical step is for the antivirus to build its own antivirus defense against that. So it's almost like they're just competing with each other. And I don't know if that means that humans then get removed from the equation, but I don't see it as the present future, at least for another 10 years, if that is even the future to come. But I definitely think humans still have a role to play here, because the quality from AI is not there in terms of the context windows and that sort of thing. So if you start work at 8 a.m. and you start speaking to the robot, and then at 8 p.m. that evening you ask the robot what was I talking about at 8 a.m., it won't remember. Yeah. So I think we don't have to worry about it taking our jobs right now.
Well, funny enough, that I spend a lot of my time talking to clients around, what is this going to mean for our development teams? And I agree with you. I think there's an element of self-policing and keeping itself in check, and also there's an element of you need that human interaction, and the data that it's receiving is vital for the quality and the input and the outcomes you want. And I think as long as we're staying ahead of technology, or with technology, maybe not ahead of it anymore, but with it, I think the synergies are good. Yeah. How that looks. Yeah. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure. It's probably a question for you guys: where do you see yourselves in the next 3 to 5 years? Is it more cybersecurity, more AI?
I think we'll definitely be always in cybersecurity. That is always going to be our main focus. But I think in the future, especially, it is almost, you can see it now. The better you are at working with AI in your day to day, that's adding so much more value to you as a tester. And as time goes on, I can only see it getting more important to be able to work with it. And the people that can work with it, those are going to be the people that kind of get the better jobs, because they're going to come up with the better ideas, I think, and they could also probably put them in place quicker than somebody that doesn't know how to use AI for their benefit.
I'm no fortune teller, but if I can look back in the last 5 years, there was no AI 5 years ago in 2020. It was just COVID. But besides that, I definitely think that it will be a completely different reality to what we are now. But that's the thing. It plays back to what I said in the beginning about staying up to date and knowing your basics and keeping up to date with the technology and not falling behind. So if you're open-minded and proactive in terms of learning the technologies, I think it will definitely be a great place to be compared to someone who stagnates and stays the same. So yeah, I definitely think it will be cybersecurity related, but to be able to say exactly where it will be, I have no clue.
and I suppose kind of the messages that you'd give our audience and takeaways from, like, we've shared a lot around AI, a lot around security. Like, as you said, we're not fortune tellers, sadly. Exactly. Yeah, potentially. Otherwise, I would have invested heavily in Netflix and Ocado lockdown. Where, like, a message you give someone that was trying to get into this or looking into it more, what would be a good takeaway message for people listening to this?
Yeah, I definitely would say, firstly, learn the basics. Then find a problem that you are struggling with in terms of the technologies that you're working with, and try and figure out a solution to that. So whether it be building a tool or something along those lines, and then write about it, blog about it, make a video about it. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking to land a job in cybersecurity, you want to come across as someone who delivers value to a company. And it's just about acquiring skills at the end of the day that the company wants. And by you proactively building a tool, talking about it, you're demonstrating knowledge and you're demonstrating value and you're being proactive. And I think that will set you in a great stead in terms of landing a job in cybersecurity.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you are learning new concepts, and this is more of a micro type of way of looking at it, if you are actually studying your courses, your certifications, and you are learning about how some type of attack or some exploit works, it would actually be, we have found it when it comes to doing demos where we are actually setting up the vulnerable environment. We learn a lot by actually doing that first, not just going onto something like a lab environment where it's all set up and you try the exploit and then you have to study it, make notes, and then use that in some exam. To set up the vulnerable environment and then run the tool is quite helpful in that way.
I think what's clear, like we have it in our industry, is you definitely get drawn to people who are naturally interested, want to learn and upskill. As you said, looking for a job, that's what I look for. That's what I know our clients look for. And you guys are going to be influencing / hopefully kind of spurring on the next generation of pen testers. Were there any kind of mentors or influencers or resources that you guys looked in that you started to follow or you'd recommend to people?
Yeah, I definitely think, coming from South Africa, there's David Bombal, who's moved from South Africa to the UK. And I think he was the leading voice in cybersecurity for a long time, and probably one of the only influencers or YouTubers back then that was making content about it and that sort of thing. So he definitely was an inspiration, still is, and Network Chuck and all of these guys and all of the new people that are coming through as well, bringing new content, helping grow the community and bring knowledge out. It's really great.
And then also finding people like in your own circle or finding a circle of friends that are involved in it and are studying. It's always nice that I can look at the desk next to me and see Sai and go, hey, Sai, I found this like cool thing. This is how you do it. And then he goes, oh, cool, same. So that kind of interaction really helps as well. Yeah. I
think it would be great as well, the fact that you guys are on that journey of the next steps, what's interesting, taking on board or investigating the new tech of AI and how it's involved in your day-to-day jobs. What would be really interesting is maybe us getting back together again in like a year's time.
Yeah.
I know you said we're not fortune tellers, but there's been loads of stuff discussed. It's like, has that come to fruition? Is there going to be changes to that? I think that gives a bit of continuity, and also, I mean, as you said, 5 years ago there was no AI. I sadly still remember back to the days of there was no automation testing; it was all manual testing. So like that stuff's going to change all the time. If people wanted to follow you or start to get involved in your ethical hacking channel, where would they go about? How they get in contact with you guys?
I think the best way is to follow us on YouTube and then LinkedIn. We're pretty active on LinkedIn. So Simon Exley and then Clint and Elves.
Yeah.
So
and then we've got a Discord channel as well that we
as
always link in our YouTube videos descriptions. That if you want to actually talk to us, you can do that through there.
Yeah, we're pretty active on there. They can ask questions or whatever. If they have problems, we try and answer them as quickly as we can.
Well, guys, look, I really appreciate you coming in today. It's been great chatting through everything cybersecurity, pen testing. I know we've only scratched the surface, but perhaps we could do this again in the future.
Awesome.
Thank you so much,
That's
Nick.
great.
Thank you.